2017 that the triad are early signs that most serial killers portrayed as children. So some of these signs that are up here also is wetting the bed after the age of 5, starting fires, and being cruel to animals. So like I mentioned earlier, how serial killers don't have any remorse, being cruel to animals is an early sign of trait of that. So of course not all serial killers have these traits, but research has been done to link them to homicide as well as aggression. So moving on. Serial killers usually come from an abusive childhood or have suffered trauma. McLeay Jill states that 683,000 children were maltreated in 2015 in Children and Youth Services Review. So as you can see there, serial killers compared to the general population have had more physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. So take Eileen Wuornos, for example. Her mother abandoned her at the age of 4 years old. Her father committed suicide, and her grandfather repeatedly raped her. She then became a serial killer and took 7 lives. Serial killers usually target specific kinds of people who have abused them in the past. For example, if the serial killer's mother had abused him and was skinny with brown hair, more than likely, in general, he would victimize women who are also skinny with brown hair. And Ronald Dominique is an example of a serial killer who killed only men. So Dominique killed at least 23 men in southeast Louisiana between 1997 and 2006, according to Force C, Imposing the Sociological Routine of a Serial Killer, which was published in 2015. So the main goal of serial killers is to kill, but why they do it are very different. So the different motives that they have are visionary, mission-oriented, hedonistic, and for power and control, as you can see up there. So visionary is the first one I'm going to explain, and it's when they have psychotic breaks, and it's usually compelled to murder by voices in their head, like higher powers telling them what to do, such as God. So Herbert Mullen is a visionary serial killer, and he killed 13 people in the early 70s and said that he had voices in his head telling him that he killed them to stop future earthquakes from happening in the future. Similar to visionary is mission-oriented, but the only difference is they don't hear voices and they're not clinically insane. They just want to rid the world of a certain type of person, for example, gays, lesbians, or other races. And they also kill with precision and very quickly. So Joseph P. Franklin was a member of the Ku Klux Klan and is an example of a missionary serial killer. He had 4 homicides and all were multiracial couples. He said, "Race mixing is a sin against God and nature. I feel it is my duty as a servant of God to protect white womanhood." So, the next thing I'm going to talk about is hedonistic. This seeks thrill and pleasure, and the subtypes of this are lust and thrill. So, in The Social Structure of a Serial Killer, published in 2009, Bartel describes a serial killer who plays out their sexual fantasies as a sexual sadist. Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, is a perfect hedonistic serial killer, which you can see up there. He murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys, and then he said that lust was a huge part of it, which means that he obviously liked them, and was for not just thrill, but because he had an attraction to these men. And then the other subtitle is thrill, and that's to induce pain and terror on their victims. And many of you may know the Zodiac Killer, and he gave notes to the San Francisco police, almost like a game of hide-and-go-seek, which gave him thrill because he gave them hints of where he was and what he's going to do next. So the next is control and power. In Teaching Sociology, Dennis P. describes serial killers who want control as wanting to experience a rush of control or power they feel has been wrested for them. Dennis Lynn Rader, who's up there, was an example of this. And he had the nickname BTK, which was bind, torture, and kill. He used to torture them for a longer period of time, which gave him control in his head on when his victims were going to die. So serial killers are really interesting and dangerous in my opinion, and I've always had a loving for this topic. So serial killers have trauma that makes them serial killers and do what they do. They have many characteristics that makes them who they are, but they also kill for many different motives. So I know a lot of you have said you've seen Criminal Minds, and I hope you have a better understanding of who serial killers are, what they do, and why they do it after this presentation.